Welcome back into the GSMC Sports Podcast for our final segment of the day, where I want to just talk about the most impressive quarterbacks through the first 2 weeks of the NFL season. Right now, we have a lot of interesting names that are on this list that I just want to sort of capitalize on and give them some praise, because it's going to be interesting to monitor whether or not they are able to continue the level of production that we've seen from them early on in this season. And I want to talk about some honorable mentions, but before I even do that, I do just want to say I do not have Patrick Mahomes on this list, and I would still take Patrick Mahomes over anybody else in the NFL. But if you look at his numbers overall, we're seeing uncharacteristic interceptions, and interceptions can be a deceiving stat at times. Sometimes they're out of desperation, or if you're Anthony Richardson, this is a random example here, but throwing a Hail Mary at the end of the game, having that get picked off. But just bad decisions from Patrick Mahomes and bad balls, just throwing it over the middle, not seeing linebackers. Specifically, I'm referencing that first interception in the Cincinnati game. So he's still excellent. No questions there. He's just not on this list. But without further ado, diving into this, I want to start with a couple of honorable mentions here, which would be Joe Burrow and Sam Darnold. Neither of them in the top 5 in my eyes, but I still think that I've overall been largely impressed with what they have shown. Joe Burrow, somebody that I still think is one of those elites in the NFL. A lot of people are sort of turning against them at this point, but I think that he has really done everything that he can up to this point, given the fact that the run game hasn't been great for them, that there's been a lot of weird energy going on around their receivers. T. Higgins obviously still not playing. Jamar Chase feeling like he was misled by the organization, that the vibes within that organization have been off. But he has still been delivering, kept them competitive in that Chiefs game. Even in week 1 against the Patriots, I don't think he was bad, but let me know what your thoughts are in the comments section. As for Sam Darnold, Vikings now probably the most surprising 2-0 team at this point, and Sam Darnold has been able to step into a new system with Kevin O'Connell and has been really good for them up to this point. I do think that the only reason to some degree, and Sam Darnold, I'm not gonna get on his case. I think that he has vastly exceeded expectations. That being said, I don't think he's in that top 5 level just now, because the second half of the 49ers game, Sam Darnold taking sacks, worst decisions, probably the only reason the Niners were in that game, but all things considered, he has been very impressive. Number 5, Baker Mayfield. Baker is somebody that just got his contract this offseason, and it's interesting because you look across the league at Dak, who has struggled. You look at Trevor Lawrence, who has struggled. Jared Goff, Tua, obviously different situation, but I still don't think that he looked great. Baker Mayfield is the one guy that has, really lived up to the contract up to this point. That he, beat up on a Washington defense that is bad, I will say. So I give him credit there, but it's not like I'm going to. I was shocked by that necessarily. The way that he hung in there against the Lions, and with Aiden Hutchinson just causing absolute mayhem for him, ultimately was very much able to handle the pressure. And how about the elusiveness that we saw from him as well? Again, evading pressure in the backfield, scrambling for himself. He had the rushing touchdown on what looked like a quarterback draw. I think that he has been excellent up to this point. Did have an interception in this game against the Lions. There were a couple miscommunications, it looked like, from the receivers. Just no reason for it. Was Chris Godwin and Mike Evans basically running right alongside one another. Just not a great decision there from Baker, but you take that play out of it, I think that he has been very good for them. Number 4, I have Kyler Murray. Gets dinged a little bit for the second half of week 1 against the Bills, where just was not the same level of success there last drive. I mean, he was dealing with pressure on that Marvin Harrison Jr. missed play that I don't want to bury him for that by any means, but really, so a little bit lower maybe than other people may have, but I mean, everything that he showed in week 2 against the Rams was nothing short of phenomenal. where the plays, both, just standing in and delivering the throws, but we got to see that electric energy of him scrambling around. And sort of what's so special about him is you see a lot of quarterbacks come into the league nowadays. You can look at it, especially with some of the rookies they're athletic and they're going to run around and use their legs and scramble. The difference between them and Kyler Murray is that when Kyler does this, just his ability to keep his eyes downfield and, at least be surveying the field for throwing options other than just resulting in running the ball himself. I think that is such a huge part of his development as a quarterback over the course of these past few years. Everybody was sort of off the scent of him headed into this season, but I've been a huge believer in the Cardinals leading into this year because I think if we get a fully healthy Kyler Murray for a full season, he is going to really return to form. He now has what I believe is his best wide receiver of his NFL career so far in Marvin Harrison Jr. I know DeAndre Hopkins, you can, debate with me there. I'm not saying it's a clear-cut decision, but I think that MHJ is going to be his most reliable receiver that he's had, and I'm expecting special things from Kyler this season. Number 3, I have CJ Stroud. Went back and forth as to whether he should be number 3 or number 2. I would say this, it's not like the Bears game was unbelievable from him. He was facing a very tough defense behind him, but just continuing to be such a smart quarterback in terms of not making mistakes, not putting the ball in harm's way, really. Saw him get a little bit aggressive in week 1 against the Colts for that red zone interception that I didn't love. But all things considered, his ability to make any type of a throw, in the pocket, the deep shots. We saw that incredible throw that he had rolling out to his right to Nico Collins in the first half of this Sunday night football game. That CJ Stroud just continues to impress, and he, like we just talked about as well in the last segment, he is, the best young quarterback really in the league that I think has an extremely bright future. And that's not a hot take. I feel like just about everybody would agree with that. I had him and Derek Carr competing for this number 2 spot. I gave it to Derek Carr because when he has played, he's been, absolutely excellent. Did have an interception in this Cowboys game this past week. I think that we can acknowledge a couple different things. Derek Carr, the play that he has had up to this point has been elite. Do I think that he's an elite quarterback? Not really at this point. He is something like 32 years old. It's really hard for me to imagine, and I've been a pro Derek Carr guy for some years now, that it's not like he's just turned this page and now that he's up with Clint Kubiak that all of a sudden he's this entirely new quarterback, but he is executing their system to a T at this point, and he's been a huge beneficiary as well. One, you could say, played the Panthers in that mix as well to sort of add to that. But additionally, he's been able to thrive off of the fact that Alvin Kamara is having an excellent season, that he's been living off of a lot of play action passes as well. And he's also had the benefit of playing with a lead. Now, obviously, they've scored on the first 15 drives that Carr has played in. So, no complaints there. But he also, ultimately speaking here, is eventually going to have to be in a closer game where he has to close out in the fourth quarter. That's where he needs to answer questions a little bit more, because we've seen Derek Carr a handful of years ago with the Raiders sort of be this type of player. Is it a matter of him being able to, sort of refine that energy and be able to sustain it for the upcoming season and longer? Or is this just a little bit of a flash in the pan? Either way, I'm very excited to see Carr playing at this level. But the number 1 quarterback in the NFL so far, I think, is pretty easily Josh Allen. And I don't really know what the debate is. Yeah, Derek Carr has been winning games, but again, I think a lot of circumstances has helped that. Josh Allen really hasn't had anything easy up to this point, where his defense put him in a little bit of a hole week 1. I know it was partially on him as well. He had a fumble on, it was maybe even the first drive of that Cardinals game. And he just sort of went into superhuman mode from there, driving down the field with ease. You see it at the end of games. The end of that first half is really, I think, when he was awoken, and he hasn't slowed down since then, because Josh Allen has the elite ability of being able to, sort of manufacture plays off script, and he has all of the physical tools, the running ability. I mean, you saw him in the red zone of that Cardinals game, keeping it for himself, running the ball for a couple touchdowns, that, superhero dive to the end zone that he did end up hurting his hand on. But even then, coming into this next upcoming week, and when he played against the Dolphins, obviously things took a drastic turn once Tua went down, and at that point, it was really more so just about preserving. And that's why his passing stats are so much on the lower end, considering the fact that he really didn't have to throw all that much. I think he had 150 yards in that game against the Dolphins. That it might have even been less than that, as I'm double checking here on the fly, but the counting stats aren't all the way there. It was 139 yards, but he is just a special talent, and this is a year where, there have been a lot of doubters. We have some doubters here at the GSMC Sports Network, but I think that he just continues to impress now without Stephon Diggs. You have a run game, at least, that's taking a step forward, but Josh Allen is, the model of F it, I'm going to do it myself, and he has been excellent. But, let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section. But that is all the time we have for today. Thank you very much for tuning into the GSMC Sports Podcast. Thank you to the GSMC Sports Network for allowing us to host this show. Remember to like, follow, subscribe wherever you keep up with us. Be sure to check us out on social media as well for more exclusive short content. And we will be back tomorrow afternoon, same time as always, at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern. We will see you then. Take care. Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go.